What is up, everyone? Max Lin here, and welcome back to my channel. This is the second episode of a series I started recently called Themindhere. This series is where I discuss the transcription process, the behind the scenes and work that goes into my transcription videos. I'll also give a little update to you all and talk about various topics that come to my mind when talking about the transcription process. Before we begin, I'd like to give a big thank you to everyone who watched, commented, and supported my previous video. I didn't think anyone would watch the entire thing, and granted, not many people did, but that's besides the point. The point is that people actually watched the video. That's kind of mind-blowing because I didn't expect anyone to click on this video, so I'd say that's a pretty good start. Now, since the last video, I decided to change a few things. From the previous video, I mentioned that I would change from display capture, which captures everything I do on the screen, to window capture of only Musescore, because I thought that the changing back and forth between YouTube and Musescore would be a headache for people. But Alfred Prose commented that the only Musescore might be monotonous, and the switching back and forth would actually bring some life to the video, which is a good point. So I've decided to stick with that. Now, the first part of this video is mostly window capture. This was before Alfred's comment, and I've already decided to try this window capture, but future videos will all be display capture. Another thing that I've added is, at the end of the video, I will play what I have so far for the transcription. That way you can hear the progress as I go through these videos until I release the actual transcription. You'll also notice as you watch the video that the time lapse is a lot slower. This is because this video has only got 2 weeks of videos worth to compress into a time lapse, while the previous video had about 2 months. So the time lapse will necessarily need to be slower. That way it can fit into the time frame of about 15-ish minutes. I've also improved the structure of these videos. That way it's a lot easier to go back and listen and digest. I'm going to add timestamps in the description below. That way people can come back and watch the video easier. Alright, let's dive into the transcription progress of the past 2 weeks. Last time I left off, I had the melody line fully transcribed, as well as some basic chords and intervals for the accompaniment, the left hand for the piano. And now this week the goal was to get the rhythm established and write out the actual accompaniment for the final piece. This time I actually have some descriptors in the piece itself, in the sheet music written in there to help me guide my rhythm. Usually I listen to the video, the original song, multiple times over and then play out some rhythm that comes up in my head and then play it over again, see if it sounds right, and then repeat that process. It takes quite a long time. This time I decided to change it up a bit. I listened to the video, the original song first, and then I put down what each part felt like or what I wanted each part to feel like. And then afterwards, once I have the basic chords and intervals down, I started making my own rhythm, but I didn't actually need to go to the song over and over again because the song, sometimes the descriptors I put down don't actually have to match with what the actual song is. In the song, that rhythm part could be very quiet, it could be calming, but if I wanted it to be exciting and boisterous, then I could make it so. So I don't actually need to refer to the video, although I still do, just for reference. But these descriptors really helped me this time around by giving me something to focus on when I'm working on that rhythm. Because now I had a clear description of what that section was supposed to feel like, and then I can craft a rhythm around it. With my previous method, I sort of did plug and chug, and if it fit, then the rhythm worked. Otherwise, I just had to keep making the rhythm, which isn't really efficient. So this helped streamline the process. Within the 2 weeks, or rather 2 weekends that it took me to make this video, I got through and established the first 3 sections of the song and started working on the 4th section. The first section sounded to me that like it should be reminiscent sounding, so open and sort of flowy, which was why for the rhythm I decided to use round notes and let it linger a bit. Drawing out that last note through two measures gives the song a nice spacious feel, which fits this first section pretty well. So the entirety of the first section uses the pattern of quarter notes plus a drawn out third note. The second part of the song sounded to me like it should be quote unquote steady but playful, so meaning a rhythm that was pretty steady but had a playful twist to it. So while playing around with some rhythms on the piano, I came across a syncopation that I kind of liked. And the syncopation, it sometimes stressed the offbeats, the and in the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I decided that it sounded pretty nice with it. It was steady, it moved along quite nicely, it wasn't drawn out, but it gave it a little playful twist in that it wasn't the stereotypical stressing 1 and 2 and 3, but more of a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The syncopation isn't actually consistent throughout the section, but because when I applied the same syncopation, it didn't sound quite right. So some of the syncopation patterns I had to adjust, and later on I decided to make it a bit more complex in the second half of the second section. That way it gets a bit more flavor to it. The third section had a whole different feeling. Coming off of that crescendo, I definitely felt that there was a passion to it. So the rhythm I chose was a pattern of chords with quarter notes. Everything in there was quarter notes. So it really stressed the beats in it with a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, where I chose to put the chords in this third section sort of depended on the original music. If I decided that it needed a tiny bit more stress, then I put the chords there. And notice that I actually didn't put the chords in the 2 or the 4 beats, but the 1 and the 3. That's where most of the stresses were, so that's where I put the chords instead of the single notes. Those were the 3 sections that I had finished for the most part. The fourth section I started on, but I didn't finish. The fourth section was actually quite similar to the first section, but I decided that it was a much more determined feeling rather than a reminiscent feeling. So instead of having the last note drawn out through the 2 measures, I decided to use drawn out chords for strength. Even though these chords were drawn out, it wasn't as drawn out or severe as the first section, and because these were chords, it put much more force behind it than a single note that was drawn out through almost 2 measures. I believe I mentioned in the last video that there were some songs that I can't transcribe or were not transcribable for me, and, well, Alfred Prose asked a good question. What were the requirements for a song to be transcribable? Well, that depends really on 2 things. One is my ability, my creative ability to transcribe it and make it my own if I didn't think that this song was something that I would enjoy making it into something that was similar but also had my own taste to it, then I wouldn't transcribe it because there were plenty of other songs that I would go for. And the second factor was actually my music theory ability and how comfortable I was in transcribing it. Some songs, so despite all these years of transcribing, my ear still isn't quite trained to pick out everything. So some of the electronic songs that I really enjoy, the chords are quite hard to pick out. Sometimes even the melodies are hard to pick out. So that I will leave off and not transcribe. The first factor mostly depends on the quality of the music and whether I enjoy the song or not. But the second factor of the transcribability of a song, I'm actually trying to improve that. One of the classes I'm taking right now is music theory in high school. And I'm actually really glad that I took this class because already, several weeks in, I've already learned that I've made quite a big mistake earlier on. So some of the pieces, since I write sheet music, some of the sheet music that I've written aren't that nice to play. I knew that for a 4/4 time signature that I needed to split the measure down the middle and make sure that there was a clear distinction between the first and the second half, but I didn't realize that you were supposed to make a clear distinction between all 4 beats. So some of my older pieces I may need to go back and fix them. But from these years of writing sheet music, what I've learned is that sheet music is really about the communication between the composer and the musician. On one hand, the composer wants to document the tune, rhythm, and feeling of the music that they've thought of. However, the musician also needs to be able to play it out. And the more playable and readable that sheet music is, the better it is for the musician to play. In reality, there is no one way to write sheet music. The composer has their own style, and it also depends on how generous the composer is towards the musicians that have to play their piece. At the end of the day, composing, and transcribing for that matter, really comes down to a bunch of choices. What kind of key signature do I want this song to be in? And if I want to transcribe it, do I want to change it? Do I want to keep the same feeling? Do I want the same tempo or slow it down a bit, speed it up a bit? Do I want to leave some room to interpret for the musician, or do I want to write it out strictly for them to play? That decision-making responsibility can be oppressing at times, but it is also the source of freedom for these quote-unquote music writers. And the ability to make choices really opens up a lot of things. This is why I enjoy transcribing a lot. If you've made it this far into the video, I applaud you. You have some mad endurance. As I keep making these videos, I hope to improve the consistency of these videos and sort of establish a standard for these Themindhere videos. And hopefully I'll be able to improve the quality with experience and with practice. Alright, thank you for watching. Enjoy the work in progress transcription at the end, and I will see you all around.